Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Rewind That. It's your girl, Miss K. If this is your first time coming across my channel, welcome. Please be sure to subscribe if you like the vibe and hit that notification bell so you know when I upload more videos like this one. All right, guys, the long-awaited recap of the episode number 4 of Godfather of Harlem, Season 3. This episode is called Captain Fields, okay? And in this episode, we see that there's a new captain at the 27th Precinct, and he's a black guy. So Jose sits down with Bumpy and he wants to know if he thinks they're going to have a problem with the new captain. Bumpy tells Jose that it depends on whether the captain bleeds black or he bleeds blue. Bumpy then expressed that his main concern is the Italians who have always been able to work things out with the cops. So now it's all about who gets to the 27th precinct first because Colombo has already made a play by sending in some cops to bust in and shoot up Bumpy's Geechee Club. So while Jose is ready for the get back, Bumpy tells him that it's not about tit for tat. It's about the heroin, and that shipment is coming in. So now Bumpy and Jose's next move must be smart. So next, Mamie convinces Bumpy to go talk to the new police captain to make him aware that there are dirty cops on the force. Next, we see that Elise has finally made it to Africa to be with Malcolm. We hear that she has already visited a few parts of West Africa, but they are now in Egypt where some of the rules for women are different, and Malcolm tells her that it's best that she stays in her room. Next, Colombo meets with the 2 officers that he hired to shoot up Bumpy's Cotton Club. He tells them that he needs to know the identification of all the cops on Bumpy's payroll. He also tells them to arrest Bumpy on whatever charge they can. Because as far as Colombo is concerned, it's time to show Bumpy who's boss. So he believes that a few days on Rikers Island should do the trick. But I guess he's unfamiliar with Bumpy's history, huh? Because a few days in jail is cake to him. So meanwhile, Bumpy meets up with the new captain whose name is Captain Reggie Fields. So already we see that Captain Fields seems like a by-the-book type of dude, because he tells Bumpy that the report shows that his club was open past the hour of legal operation. So Bumpy tells him that most of the clubs in Harlem do that. But forget about all that because my issue is that 2 of your officers came and shot up my club for no reason, and I want to know what you're going to do about it. So Captain Fields tells Bumpy that it would take lots of time and money to investigate police corruption, and he'd rather spend time on crimes like prostitution, racketeering, numbers running, and dope peddling. So long story short, Captain Fields tells Bumpy that he knows all about his long rap sheet, plus all the good things he's done for the community. And while police corruption is a problem, so are mob bosses, both Italian and black. So Bumpy says, I guess that means you ain't gonna do nothing about it then. So as he's getting up, Bumpy tells Captain Fields that if he's not gonna keep his cops under control, you bet your black A that I will. And he walks out, leaving Captain Fields to think on that, okay? And guys, it just never ceases to amaze me how much Bumpy does not care to hold his tongue for anybody, all right? He is always bossing the heck up. I love it. Next, Malcolm sits down with Cuban revolutionary Che Guevara, and he believes that Malcolm has the power to sound a war cry. He wants Malcolm's speech at the Pan-African Conference to be effective enough to cause the African leaders to lend support to what he calls the worldwide struggle for liberation. So Malcolm tells Che that he's in Africa to talk about his people's political struggles in the U.S. But Che tells Malcolm that he's always talking about crimes committed against his people by racist forces in his country. He goes on to tell Malcolm that if he can't see that his country is committing these crimes all over the world, then why are you here? And I was like, wow, that's another eye-opener for Malcolm, Of course, it doesn't change what's going on against blacks in America, but what Che is saying should only further Malcolm's cause, It just really speaks to how corrupt this country really is. Next, hotel security has Elise go meet with a man named Gregory Reynolds. He tells Elise that he's with the U.S. State Department. His purpose in calling Elise into his office is to let her know that they don't want Malcolm to give his speech at the Pan-African Conference. He tells Elise that they know Malcolm has been meeting with Che Guevara and they plan to spread communist propaganda. At the end of the conversation, he tells Elise that he knows they attempted to kill Malcolm in New York. And at this point, he wants to see Malcolm get home safe because he certainly doesn't need any more enemies. So later on, Elise tells Malcolm about this little meeting with Gregory. And Malcolm tells her that he was not from the State Department, okay? He was CIA. So while Elise was trying to voice her concerns, Malcolm tells her that he's not going to let anyone stop him from doing his work. But Elise tells him that she has a bad feeling. Next, Bumpy finds out that there's only one cop left on their books. So he wants to know what the heck happened because he had at least 24 patrol officers and 3 detectives. So Chance tells Bumpy that whoever got to their cops either put the fear of God in them or is paying them a whole lot more. So Bumpy tells them to connect him with D'Alessandro so that he can get some information from him. Next, Stella meets with the assistant district attorney and she explains to him that she's staying with Joe Colombo for protection. So he tells her that if she wants Joe Colombo out of her hair for good, all she needs to do is connect Joe to the shipment of heroin that's coming in. So Stella is not too sure about this, right? But when he tells her that he can offer her protection, a new identity, and set her up with a new life in Paris, Stella was like, what do I have to do? But, she needs to be careful because if he just told her that they don't normally protect people internationally, I don't think that she should trust him to come through for her. Next, D'Alessandro confirms to Bumpy that Colombo has everyone on his payroll. He also tells Bumpy that sniffing around for him ain't going to be easy and it could get him hurt pretty bad. So Bumpy tells D'Alessandro that if he comes through for him, he will pay him better than he did before. So D'Alessandro says he'll do what he can, but Chance, Pettigrew, and Bumpy don't believe D'Alessandro will come through, right? So now Bumpy says that the only thing he can do is set up a meeting with Colombo. Next, Bumpy meets with Colombo, who has the same offer that he's always had. He controls the doogie, but Bumpy could distribute it. So Bumpy says, how about 50-50? And Colombo says, forget about it because it's too late. He claims that his slave deal was fair and that Bumpy made him look foolish to the families. Then he tells Bumpy that he can go screw himself. Colombo tells Bumpy that the cops are about to be all over everything that him and Jose own. And Bumpy tells him that he can't control all the cops. And Colombo says, I control more than you. And that's when he opens his trunk and shows Bumpy D'Alessandro's dead body. He tells Bumpy that D'Alessandro was asking a lot of questions. So I guess D'Alessandro really did try to come through for Bumpy, guys. What a shame. Next, officers O'Malley and Delano try to arrest Bumpy on Colombo's orders. But Captain Fields comes in right on time, and he wants to know why they are arresting Bumpy. O'Malley tells Fields that Bumpy is a known criminal, but that's clearly not an answer. So Fields tells O'Malley and Delano to leave, and he wants to see them in his office in an hour. So Bumpy thanks Captain Fields, and Fields tells Bumpy that he's not the enemy. He's just trying his best to fix a system that is flawed. So next, Bumpy tells Chance and Pettigrew to go find O'Malley and Delano and to bring them to Casa Havana alive. So the plan is not to kill them, but for them to wish they weren't alive. See, the crazy thing about it is Captain Fields didn't realize that he was the reason why Bumpy knew the names of O'Malley and Delano. By saying the names out loud like that, that was all Bumpy needed. And then he was able to sick his boys on them. So next, Malcolm comes back from his second meeting with Che, and he's all sweaty, and he tells Elise that his stomach is bothering him. He eventually collapses, right? So, of course, Elise gets Malcolm some medical attention, and she tells him that she thinks he was poisoned and that he shouldn't make his speech. So even after the doctor tells Malcolm that he should rest, Malcolm says that if anything happens to him, it would be Allah's will. Next thing we know, he's making the speech. Next, Stella invites Colombo over for dinner, and she gets him to talk about the shipment of the doogie. He tells her that they should be expecting it any day now. Stella does all this by simply telling Colombo that she went to see her father, and he asked about when the next shipment would be coming in. And even though Colombo thought it was strange for Chin to be talking to his daughter about these things, he still told Stella what he told her, and she was able to get it on a recording. Funny thing is that before Colombo leaves, he tells Stella that she only ratted on her father out of grief and that she's not a real rat. It's not in her blood. And all I could think of is how wrong he is for thinking that, she's a super rat. At this point, this is what I'm thinking. But it's a good thing that Joe said that, because Stella is a rat with a soft heart. And she winds up doing something to the recording to make it sound unclear. On top of that, she tells the assistant district attorney, Pike, that Joe Colombo is clean. Next, Chance and Pettigrew abduct Delano and O'Malley, like Bumpy ordered, and Bumpy and Jose start torturing them in the Casa Havana basement. Bumpy eventually gets the officers to resign and give up the names of all of the cops on Joe Colombo's payroll. Bumpy then goes to give the letters of resignation to Captain Fields, along with all the names of the dirty cops. So Captain Fields was like, "Did you hurt these men?" And Bumpy says, "And what if I did? What are you gonna do about it?" So Fields says, "I can do plenty." So instead of feeding into this, Bumpy tells Fields that the officers gave him signed confessions that named every single cop, including Captain Fields, okay? And I ain't gonna lie, guys, that was a surprise to me. So Captain Fields says, "And what are you gonna do with that?" And Bumpy says, "That depends on you, because I made copies for safekeeping." So Fields tells Bumpy that he had to take the pad money or everyone would have rebelled against him. And Bumpy was like, "So you threaten me, but you keep your hands off the Italians. Man, you need to figure out who your enemies are, and until then, you work for me, mother lover." And Captain Fields seems to be pretty infuriated by this, okay? Like, he's okay to work for a white man, but he has problems with working for a black man. So sad. Anyway, the episode ends with Monsieur 98 landing in America and getting off the plane. And now that the new episode is out, guys, we shall see what that episode brings. And once I find out and watch it, I will be dropping another video, okay? Let me know what you guys thought about this episode. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And hit that notification bell so you know when I upload more videos like this one. Until next time, you guys take care and be blessed. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.